Hi, this is Shel Horowitz from GoingBeyondSustainability.com, and I am here with
Beth Haines.
who is at the City Reliquary of New York City, a collection of artifacts about the city located in Williamsburg. So, Beth, what is your role here?
I'm the assistant director of the museum.
And it was founded in 2006.
We moved to a storefront in 2006. We started as a window display in our founder Dave Herman's living room in 2002. He put a bunch of artifacts that he'd collected up in his window, and the window became a local landmark, and through that he met other collectors, other people interested in the everyday objects of New York City life, and it grew into this.
Okay. And how many people do you typically get in a day?
It really varies. We're busier on summer weekends. But, on a weekday like this, we might get 25, 30 people.
And why here? Why this location?
I was not part of the decision-making process in choosing this particular storefront over others. Our landlord is a really good guy. We don't own the building, and he's been very generous with us in letting us use this space and the backyard.
And the space I'm seeing here with its tin ceilings and whatnot, I'm guessing latest quarter of the 19th century, perhaps?
Probably. I haven't yet done a deep dive into the history of this building. Directly before us, it was a vintage clothing shop, and I believe prior to that it was a bodega, but it's probably been any number of things.
And why Williamsburg as opposed to Manhattan, where more people might find you?
We like kind of the everydayness of Brooklyn. I think there's something that's very vital about Brooklyn, the way it's got manufacturing still, and these little businesses that are doing their best to survive, and yet got these massive changes on the waterfront. That was really just getting started when the Reliquary started, and then when we came here. So we've seen a lot of changes just in this spot.
Yeah, I used to live about 2 miles south of here, just off the corner of Flatbush and Tillery, but I moved out of New York in 1980, so it was a long time ago.
Well, Flatbush and Tillery was a very different neighborhood then.
It wasn't really a neighborhood then. I had my one little street of brownstones, but it was basically where you got off the Manhattan Bridge or the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway to go to downtown Brooklyn. And, but it's somewhat similar. It developed around the same time as this area in mid-19th century. And, yeah. So the style of curation here is very interesting. I have some observations, but I want to hear yours.
It is a cabinet of curiosities style of display, for sure. We're definitely inspired by the sort of maximalist aesthetic and having multiple versions of the same thing, though each one is very different when you look close. Like typologies of amphora coffee cups, like are behind me, or Statue of Liberty souvenir figurines, old seltzer bottles. Every one was a different company or a different delivery man that had a route in Brooklyn.
And it doesn't seem. It does seem like there is a Brooklyn focus here, but there's also certainly some stuff from other parts of the city.
Yes, I think we've sort of developed a close relationship with especially businesses in this neighborhood. So like the cake was from a local business that closed down. The album of kids' first haircuts was from a local barber where somebody affiliated with the museum got his haircut, and so when that barber retired, he was generous enough to give us that album.
Yeah, well, what I noticed as walking through is that the layering of exhibits. Like, for example, you're looking at the Brooklyn Dodgers, and at the same time you're looking at those seltzer bottles. They could be seen as one exhibit, although they're really two overlapping ones.
We definitely invite visitors to draw their connections. Some of it is just practical. We are a very small space, and we have made use of every inch of it that we can.
You have. And those two tiny little rooms back there, and then this lobby is actually much less dense than I will be posting still pictures that I took as I walked through. What is the square footage?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
It's small, whatever it is. It's like I actually live in Western Massachusetts right now, and there's a Titanic museum in the back of a jewelry store. It's got about the same footprint, and it's got just as much stuff in it.
That's fantastic. We love small museums wherever they may be found.
Oh yeah, they're so much
fun. I always make a point of looking them, seeking them out when I travel. Yeah, I think that the display does invite people to make connections and really kind of feel the city as a whole, because the city itself is maximalist too. A lot of people, especially first-time visitors, find New York very overwhelming.
Oh yeah, as a native, even I do.
I feel like I've been here long enough that I'm used to it now, but I still sometimes late at night we'll be taking a cab over the Manhattan Bridge or something. I'm so lucky that I get to live here. And, it's huge and beautiful, and there are so many things.
Yeah, it's always something new to find. The last time I was through the city, I chose to visit the Louis Armstrong House, which is...
That is a good one.
That is a good one. Yeah, and one I had not known was open to the public, and there it was on Google waiting for me to find it. And just a couple miles from where I stay when I visit New York. With my in-laws. And so one thing I did notice is you've got both the 1939 and the 64-65 World's Fairs very well represented, and spilling out into more than one area, in fact.
Yes, we are massive fans of the World's Fair.
And one thing I also noticed the absence of was that other baseball team, the one in the Bronx.
I feel like... as a small and scrappy place, that we feel slightly more of a kinship with the Mets. It's not like we're anti-Yankees.
Well, you got the Dodgers, too. You got lots of stuff about the Dodgers. Again, a sort of ornery little startup team, and scrappy. I didn't say anything about the New York Giants, actually.
I don't believe we have anything about the New York Giants.
Yeah, I would think if you could find some Polo Grounds artifacts, that would probably be a really nice thing to have in your collection.
Yeah, Polo Grounds stuff would be great. Things that have gone and are barely preserved. Yeah,
let's talk about the subway for a minute. That seems to play a very popular role in your curating.
The subway is the lifeblood of New York, and it is what has allowed the city to become the capital that it is. And if we aren't careful about maintaining it, we're going to make it impossible for the city to run. If we can't have some real overhaul and cost reform and improvements in the work culture and and just general improvements on how we use the street. It's the free-for-all of cars that is everywhere. I'm looking at a traffic jam right now, with people using the bus stop as a loading zone.
I was reading on the subway on my way over here. I was reading an article in today's AM New York about the rollout of 4,000 new electric-assisted city bikes. So that should help a little bit. But there was another article in the same paper about bikers complaining they have nowhere to park.
I've heard that both those things are true. There are. I am a little bit too scared to ride a bike myself on a regular basis. There are a lot of streets that don't have protected bike lanes that are kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I used to do it.
So then
I commuted from Brooklyn to Manhattan by bike.
I would love to see some more protected bike lanes. It would, I'm sure, make my commute far shorter to have that kind of thing, but I'm not going to go.
Where do you commute from?
Wilding, Crown Heights. It's one of those areas. A lot of Brooklyn is hard to get to from within.
Doesn't the G train go pretty close to there?
It's hard for me to get to the G train.
Okay.
So I'm on the 4th Avenue part of Crown Heights.
Well, I noticed the prize, I would say, in your New York City subway memorabilia is the battle-scarred red train IRT door.
One of the Redbird doors. Yeah, it's got we've got the spec sheet for it there. Yeah, those were a lot of them were famously used as a artificial reef off the coast of North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not really something that's done anymore. I think that was like in the 90s or like early 2000s maybe that happened. But I think they've kind of like, it works kind of, but also there's like lead-filled paint that we're just dumping in the ocean.
Yeah, not so good. Not so
Probably
good.
not.
And doors
not
that'll
great.
rust. And
Yeah, very occasionally you'll see a Redbird pulling a work train or like a trash train or something.
They were certainly an icon of my childhood, and I remember all of a sudden the IRT trains were red, and when did that happen? And like, because they had always been black.
There's like something very fun and cheerful about it. Yeah, my favorite item is also in the MTA collection. It's the SJD token.
SJD.
Which stands for Sylvester J. Dubose, who was a comptroller of the MTA and snuck his initials into the design of a token before it was sent to the mint. And a bunch of them were minted and distributed. He eventually got caught and was fired. But, you know, he saw his chance for immortality and he went for it.
Cool.
And, you know, I don't know the names of any other MTA controllers, so
Right.
you know.
I'd love to see that. I missed that as I was going through.
It's sadly a little poorly lit, but it's basically right under the rat skeleton.
Okay, I will check
the
it out
flashlight
again
on
when
your phone.
we're done. And so how did you end up doing this? Where did you come from, and how did you end up in this particular position?
I was a big fan of the Reliquary before I started working here. And on one of my visits, I was recruited by the volunteer coordinator to volunteer here as a front desk person, docent, and eventually I stuck around so long that they brought me on as staff. So.
And do you work with other museums? Like, I know, of course, there's the Subway Transit Museum in downtown Brooklyn. There's the Museum of the City of New York near Central Park. Do you coordinate with any of them about special exhibits or sharing the knowledge of these other places around so that people go to more than one?
I definitely do my part to send people to other museums. In terms of formal partnerships, not so much. We're big fans of the American Folk Art Museum. We've got a coffin shaped like the Empire State Building, and that's from Ghana. And recently they had a Ghanaian artist exhibiting with them, so that was a nice synergy, and we've had tours of members go back and forth. So they're I would say close to us, Morbid Anatomy Museum, which operates mostly as a pop-up now. They're also good friends of ours. Brooklyn Historical Society. There are lots of little museums in New York, but we do stick together.
Cool.
And there are often overlaps.
Well, Beth Haines, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay.